What's up, Glue Dots? Today I have for you a couple of elegant and beautiful home decor pieces that are kind of glam, and one is a lighted wall sconce, the other is a wall decor piece. So without wasting much more time, let's get right to them. So I'm going to show you the ingredients that I'm going to start with, but you know, my projects always morph as I go. So for the full list of them, look down in the description box. I'm starting with one of these box framed box arts from Dollar Tree, a couple of coasters, this marble contact paper from Walmart, and then some embellishment, and my Waverly white chalk paint. Now, the chalk paint is only because this, being black, is gonna show through my contact paper, so I just kind of want to cover up those sections only. I'm using the Waverly white chalk paint. You can use any kind of paint you want. You can spray paint it. And I'm just gonna go over, as I said, only these parts that are really dark so they don't show through my contact paper. To speed up my dry time, I'm just going to use my hot blower gun. There's a link down below if you're interested. These are so great for so many things. Now that it's dry, which was only like 30 seconds to a minute later, I'm going to use my marble contact paper from Walmart and measure out a piece that will cover the entire square, including the sides. Better to have a little extra just in case, and then that way you can tuck it over the back. So I'm gonna go with quite a bit of extra. Now I'm gonna go ahead, peel my contact paper and stick it onto my piece. I like to work with a little bit at a time so it doesn't get bubbles and stuff. Inevitably it does get some wrinkles or bubbles, but at least you have better chances this way. And I just kind of peel as I go and keep smoothing it out. Now I chose a box frame that has a fairly light design on it, but it is still showing through a bit. I could have painted the sides too. It's not super obvious, and we are going to be putting some bling wrap over that, so I'm not going to worry too much about it at this point. Next, I'm going to take my two really cute coasters that I found at Dollar Tree and place them where I want them on my little box art here. I think I'm going to have mine sort of not overlapping, but just like that, and then hot glue them down. At this point, I love the pink that's on here, and I have this pink bling wrap, and I love my sparkle. So I'm going to be putting this around this outer edge here, just 2 layers deep, or maybe towards the middle of it, just to, I don't know, haven't decided yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and, this is a peel-in stick one, so I'm just going to attach it right around the edge. Now you can definitely do this before you put the coasters on if you'd like to. It's up to you. I don't know why, but I'm really into pink and peach suddenly, so a lot of my DIYs probably will be having those colors in them. And now is where my projects start morphing, because I'm looking at it and I thought originally that was going to be it, but I do feel like it's still really blank up here, so I'm gonna think about what I want to do to add something to that. I'm not a big bow person, so I may use a little bit of my bling wrap around the edges of my coasters here. I don't know yet, but let me think about it and you'll see soon. So I've tried several options here. I was thinking, do I do piece here and a piece there, you know, the top and bottom of these? Do I frame it all the way around, and do I use maybe single strand or double strand? So I kind of play with the process a bit. What I actually think I'm going to do is, I think just to break up all of these horizontal and vertical lines, I'm going to do a strip of my bling wrap going diagonally across. So I just slid it right under the 2 corners there, which thankfully I had not put the hot glue all the way down there, and I'm just going to measure out my piece, cut it off there, and I know that once I peel the sticky I won't be able to stick it underneath there, so I'm just going to find that halfway point there and I'm gonna tear off my paper at that point. This way it'll still slide while I'm sticking it down. I'm pretty satisfied with the way this looks. You may want to add some little tiny flowers or something, maybe some pearls. I also had grabbed this pearl wrap as well, just to see if maybe I wanted to add some little touches with that. And again, it's kind of something I'm going to play with. So I took this 5-strand pearl wrap and I cut 1 strand off of it, and I'm doing 1 strand on one side of this pink bling wrap and 1 on the other side. Again, just to kind of break it up and give it a little extra interest. So while I was working on this, I had an idea. If you want to use this as a Mother's Day gift, you can always leave a space open here and maybe put a picture of your mom or a picture of you and your mom or something like that, and even frame it with the bling wrap. That would be really cute too, being blessed and grateful for a great mom. A special thank you to DIY with Nadia and Krafty Leeny for putting together this Unleash Your Glam DIY collaboration. Make sure you go to the description box and get the link for the playlist there so you can see what these other creative crafty ladies came up with. I'm pretty sure you're not going to want to miss it. Once again, just like all my projects, check the description box for all the necessary items because you never know what I might add. I have a piece of foam core that's just a scrap, 2 of these glass frames from Dollar Tree, some wire, and then these are those laser wood cutouts from Dollar Tree. I took them all out and threw them in a bag just to save space, but you can find them kind of, I think I found mine in the sticker aisle. So the first thing you're going to do is completely remove all the packaging and that little paper from your frame here. And you'll also want to remove the little gold stand that it has. That just pulls apart and comes right out really easily. So you'll be left with 2 pieces that are just like this, just the glass and the metal frame. The next thing we're going to do is take some of our laser cutouts here, which I've actually done ahead of time, but you're going to pick different ones and see how you can place them in there to get them all to fit nicely, however design you want. Fill this up with a bunch of your cutouts. So this is how I got mine to fit. You can just play with it, finagle it until you get them to fit in there the way you want. Now one of them is left over from another project, so it was already spray painted, but I am going to now take a picture of this so that I can remember my exact layout that I had, or if you have duplicates of these, you can just kind of set them aside so that you know how to bring these back, because we're going to take these pieces out and spray paint them, and I'm going to be spray painting mine gold to match my little frame here. While I'm waiting on those to dry, I'm going to be taking these apart. So these actually, each one has 2 little pieces of glass in it. So we're going to be removing those for right now just to make it easier to work. And what we're going to be doing now is a couple of things. First of all, we're going to want to bend these little tabs down. I've already done it on these 2, but you can see they stick straight up. And I'm bending them a little bit angled inwards because we're going to be putting these 2 frames together. So temporarily I'm going to put my little tabs down here too because they're getting in my way. And we have our 2 pieces of frame that we're going to be putting together to form kind of this, whatever angle that you prefer. So if you want it to have a more extreme angle, you can do that. If you want it to have less of an angle, you can do that. It's personal preference. We're going to take our piece of foam core and we're going to be figuring out what angle we want to do. So we're going to be cutting out our foam core to be our foundation to hold these in whatever angle we choose. So I'm going to line them up and form my angle. Take a pencil and outline here or draw a line where that is going to be, that angle for you. Remember now that this triangle is the inside here, we just drew the line from. We actually need it to be bigger than the triangle we drew. So technically, if you'd like to, from the get-go, or not, whatever, it's up to you, you can draw your lines here on the outside. Or you can do both like I'm doing. It's just going to show me where I'm going to be cutting so that I have enough to attach my frames to. And I'm going to just do that straight there on the corner. Now to cut this out, we're going to use a ruler and a good sharp blade. And I got this one from Crafter's Square at Dollar Tree, and it works beautifully. But you do want a really sharp blade when cutting your foam core. This way you get a really nice clean edge on your cutout and you don't have any of those little balls. Next, we're going to be taking the little tabs here and bending them a little bit in. The reason we're doing this is because once these are put up together at the angle that we want, we're going to be using those to help hold this together. So it's really helpful if they are bent at the angle that they need to be to sort of be flush with each other, and that way we can not only add some glue, but we're going to wire those together as well. I'm going to just bend them to the angle that I need for them to be. So it's really important on this one to use pliers, because otherwise this whole thing bends. This whole frame will bend down if you try and just use your hands. Hopefully you can see now that I have them bent in such a way that those two pieces are flush together. So this is what they should be like. Not these little tiny tabs that hold in the glass. Those we're still going to use for the glass. But these two pieces, you do want them to be flush. Now I'm not sure if this is the exactly right angle for this, but I'm sure it's pretty close. So what I'm going to do to be able to help me with that, I'm just going to hold this one down to this little cardboard triangle, or the foam core triangle that we made, so I can test and see if my angles of my tabs are right or not. At this point also, you can cover this with some decorative paper, or you can also paint it. Now remember, foam core is paper, so it will kind of bubble up a bit. It's not going to be a really big deal because it will be inside and kind of hidden. So I'm going to give this a couple of light coatings of spray paint with my gold to match my little cutout pieces that I'm going to have. And also, while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to clean all of my glass pieces to have those ready to go. And by the way, if there's any residual sticker, because they use that strip of really sticky tape, double-sided tape, to hold these together. A great way to get that off is using nail polish remover, and I like just a full-on nail polish remover, because the one from Dollar Tree is actually not like 100% acetone. It doesn't work as well, but if you can find 100% acetone at Dollar Tree, that works well, or maybe even alcohol, because I know that does work as well. So I'm going to paint this. I'll be right back. Okay, these are all dry, and I've sprayed both sides of them, and I've cleaned my glass. So I'm going to be putting one piece of glass into each frame, and I'm going to start to put in my little laser cut wood pieces again in the same way that I had them before. So remember, I told you, take a picture of them so you know how you had them put in there. It'll just save you a lot of time. It's sort of like putting a puzzle back together. Did you join our glued out family yet? Hit that subscribe button right down there below. And give me a thumbs up if you like what you're seeing. Then once you have those in, you're going to put your second piece of glass right on top of each one so that it'll lock those pieces in. This way we don't have to put any glue, which is really nice, because the glue would show through the glass any way you try and do it. Then bend your little tabs down to hold that in place. Of course, with the exception of these bigger oval ones. Then we're going to be taking our little piece here. I spray painted mine. I didn't get any bubbling because I did very light coats of my spray paint on it. So for this part, we're going to be placing these, and we're going to be doing that one at a time. And I'm going to be using my Gorilla Clear Grip, which you can use E6000 or the Dollar Tree adhesive, as well as some of my hot glue. But mostly, I think it's most important to use the adhesive type glue. It just holds better. So get that lined up just so on your piece so that it's not hanging off the back and it's not hanging off the edge here in the front either. And we're going to do the same thing and attach our other piece, making sure that our tabs are together still when we put it down, because we're going to be using those to hold it together. The most important part here is to make sure that this front part lines up and looks good, because that is what is going to show from the front. Don't depend on that hot glue at all, because it is really, really very temporary, like momentary temporary meaning. So we're just going to get things glued down and then let it dry really well, because it's that E6000 that's really holding this together. Now I have this glued down, but it's still wet, so it's very, very fragile at this point. We are not going to mess with our little tabs. We're not going to mess with anything. All you might want to do is add a little bit of your adhesive in here along that inner edge, just to make sure that everything in the long run will dry and hold more permanently. I'm going to let this dry for a good few hours before I mess with it at all, because I don't want the whole thing to fall apart on me. What I will be doing is using some of these little LED fairy lights, which are from Dollar Tree, and when you find these, get them. It's such a good deal. When I couldn't find them at Dollar Tree for a while, oh my goodness, I searched the internet. There is no deal as good as the Dollar Tree deal on these. While I wait for this to dry, which obviously it's going to be a couple hours, it's not going to take me long to do this, but I'm going to put some batteries in here, kind of get this situated a little bit, and I don't know, wait for the time to go by. Another thing we can do while we're waiting for this to dry is work on the back part, which we're also going to use as the hanging part. So before we exactly get to that, I should have already told you too that these tabs over here should also have been bent flat. So because we're going to be taking a piece of foam core and cutting that to measure and make the back side. So we do need these little tabs to be flat. Be really careful when you bend them so that you don't end up breaking your glass or end up pulling your little frames right off of this base here. But if you haven't made it yet, please bend those in before you get these even glued on. And it's actually easier to do that with your fingers than it is with the pliers. Okay, so once you get those bent, you should be able to put your piece of foam core flush against the back side of this. So I'm going to put my one side up against there, and I'm going to match up to the other side and mark it so I know where to cut. I pretty much just kind of did a general line there. And I'm just going to use my square to go ahead and make sure that I have a nice even piece. So I've got my width line cut, and I'm just going to mark that so that I know where to cut across. So make sure this piece measures just the right length and width that you need before you do anything else. And then we're going to need to spray paint this as well. So it does dry pretty quickly because I do very, very light coat so that it doesn't end up bubbling the paper. So I'm going to do that first. But before I give it that light coat of spray paint, I'm going to take my little fairy lights here. These are going to be getting glued to the back side so that we can access the battery pack in order to be able to not only change the batteries, but turn our light on and off. And I'm just going to be also poking a hole somewhere to feed these lights through. Now I'm going to center the battery pack so that this hangs a little more comfortably on the wall and doesn't make the whole thing lopsided when it's hanging. And I'm going to put it up just a little ways from the bottom so that it allows space for this bottom piece here. And find just a spot there and poke a little hole. And you only need a hole large enough to be able to pass these little fairy lights through, so it doesn't have to be very big at all. So before we pass those through though, I'm going to go get this painted. What we need to do now with this piece, it's getting more dry since we've been doing other things. I'm going to take a little bit of my wire that I have I don't know where I got this gold wire. I used to do jewelry, so it's just something that I had left over, but I'm sure they have something at Dollar Tree, some gold wire of some sort. It doesn't even have to necessarily be gold because it's not really going to show, so don't worry too much about that. What I'm going to do is just cut a small piece of this wire, and I'm going to have to turn this around so I can see it, but we're going to be passing it through the little holes that are inside those little tabs there. So these tabs that we bent right in here, they now are flush up against each other and they have a hole in the center. So I'm going to pass my wire through a couple times just to twist it and make sure that that stays together really well. So I have that twisted. I'm going to cut off that little excess piece there, and then just kind of push that down. So we're also going to add now some of our E6000 along this inside seam as well. And we're going to let that dry really well also. So I'm going to put my glue inside this inner corner here. Now it does show just a little bit from the front, the glue in that crack, but it's really not bad at all. If you have any kind of narrow ribbon, not the really thin ribbon like this one, but if you have something a little thicker than that, you can run that right down the center there as well, and it won't show, as long as it doesn't come out past your glass part. So I actually found in my stash some of this ribbon. It's kind of a beigey color. So I'm just going to measure out a piece that runs the length, a little shorter than the length of that. And I'm going to attach it to the glue. And I think that way it's going to help to hold those pieces together even more right now while I'm waiting on them to dry. It does help a tiny bit to lay them this way. So as long as this other part has dried, that helps to keep a little bit of pressure to keep those in place. So while we have it tipped over like that, I'm actually going to use some of this really thin gold ribbon that I also had in my stash. Now, I know you may not have these items in your stash. So this ribbon here, it's this Offray ribbon, and it's wired. It doesn't have to be, but I really like the fact that it's gold. But if you have maybe some bling wrap in your stash or anything else that you want to put here just to cover that up a little bit, I think anything else would be just fine as well. I'm also going to put that around the edge of my backing as well while we're still waiting on this other glue to dry here. Now we're going to be taking our light pack here, and I'm going to glue it on the back. I'm going to use a little bit of the E6000 as well as my hot glue because I just want to make sure that holds on there. Do make sure you're gluing the right side though, and not the side with the screw. Now before we feed those lights through, we're also going to need to create some type of a hanger for this. So if you have whatever your ribbon was that you used for your trim, you can use that, or you can use some twine. It's not really going to matter because it is going to be on the back side. So, and for the hook, I'm just going to glue my piece right down. I don't want my hook to show from up above, so I'm going to hang it down a little bit lower. And do make sure you leave enough of it that it will stick out, because don't forget that your battery pack also sticks out. So you want to have enough room for that. Now I'm just going to feed my lights through this little hole that we made while we're waiting on that hot glue on the back there to dry. And I'm going to leave that extra cord part, which is the thicker part of the wire. I'm just doing the wiry part. This other part, I'm just going to keep it back behind here. If you want to put some glue on that, you can do that to kind of hold it out of the way. And then we're just about ready to put this all together here. As long as this piece is dry, you can go ahead and start working on attaching everything. If you do want to, you can put some kind of something there in the middle part. You can either use a little string of pearls, really a small string of pearls, or maybe the Mardi Gras beads from Dollar Tree if you can find them in the pearl color, if you like it like that. If you don't like it like that, you can spray paint them gold to kind of go with the rest of your decor. This way it'll cover up any glue that might have been sort of showing through there. And you can actually put this on while that glue is still kind of wet, or you can add some extra glue in there, whatever works easier for you. So we're going to lay this on top here, and everything should line up really well. And we're going to be gluing this down with the E6000 with maybe just a dot or two of the hot glue, but we've already determined that the hot glue is very, very temporary. So mainly it's going to be the E6000 that is doing the work, and this is something that we will definitely need to let dry plenty of time before we put it up. So as far as these lights go, you can sort of wind them up in any way you'd like to. We're just going to make sure that they sort of stay within our little glass area here. And I'm going to run my E6000 along the side edges and the bottom edges, not obviously along the top. We don't really have a need for it there. And place your top on there. Make sure that everything's hitting the glue. All right, now it's just a matter of being patient, letting this dry several hours, or best of all overnight, and then I'm going to hang it up and show you the end result. If you'd like to follow me on Pinterest or Instagram, both are EP Midnight Crafter. Also, join us in our really great Facebook group, Midnight Crafter Glue Dots, where you can show off some of your creative designs too. If you'd like to enter to win a cute little Bling owl keychain, the drawing for that is done the first of every month along with a live chat. And the link for that is right down below in the description box.